Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. We're thrilled to have you here. We've got our Wake Forest School of Business alumni and our friends from a legacy, and we're thrilled that you guys are here with us on your lunch hour. Feel free to eat. Keep your cameras off if you need to. We understand, and we will continue to invite new ones in from our weight room. But we're thrilled to have the Legacy Center for Leadership and Character with us today, and Pat Sweeney is going to talk to us all about Gen Z. So Pat, take it away.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here and have the opportunity to kind of discuss what are the needs and values of the Gen Z workers. This has been a big topic. If you read the Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, a lot of businesses are grappling with how do we adjust or do we need to adjust our culture, our policies, procedures, practices, system structure, how we do business in order to attract and retain the younger generation workers. And again, as business leaders, we want to make sure we're meeting those needs and values in order to keep it up. So that's the intent on this. We're going to learn from each other, and I hope we have some Gen Zs on the session today, and you can help educate us and learn from that. But to begin, we just want to just start. We're going to explore this concept of Gen Z. So I'm going to just share my screen with you here just briefly as we start this. But again, we're looking at the needs and values of the Gen Z worker. Again, they were born right now, the oldest Gen Z, you can see when the time frame, but the oldest Gen Z is 27 years old now. And I'm going back here. Okay, it's running out on me here. Again, the oldest is 27 years old and younger. It is the most diverse population in U.S. history. And the other thing is that this generation has a different view of leaders. They are facilitators. They are resource providers. They set the conditions for collaboration. They are not seen as the experts. Again, Google, Chat, GPT are the experts. So again, a different view of leaders that different of the older generations, it's different than how older generations view leaders. And again, this is a totally different view of leaders. And what do they value? And this is what the research says. And again, and I'll share this with you and Lynn will drop this into the chat. But again, they are connected. They're almost connected 24/7. So connection and collaboration is really important. This generation wants to have a purpose and they want to serve a higher purpose. So organizations that talk about the purpose they serve will be in a position of advantage. Also, social responsibility is very important to this generation. So sustainability, doing right is critical for this generation. Transparent and frequent communication is critical. Autonomy. These are very well educated, very well connected, and they want to have the autonomy to do their job. They also value flexibility, and this is where it's either work hours or type of work. I can do hybrid or can do a combination. And mental well-being is very important to this generation. And how do we address and making sure we have mental well-being? And for older generations, this is a very big shift. I know when my two youngest students would say, I need a mental health day in high school, it totally blew me away. I said, you kidding me? Suck it up and just go to school and make it happen. So this is totally different. And then work-life balance. They truly want to have, they don't mind working, but they want to have a life and they want to be able to create that life. So they want to have boundaries between the work life. And as I said, this is one of the most diverse generations in the history of the United States. So diversity and inclusion are very important to this generation. So they're looking for organizations that value diversity and inclusion. And they want to develop their full potential. They want to have career paths, and they want to have opportunities to develop their full potential. And as I said before, ethical and social responsible organizations are very critical. They want to do right, and they're going to be very important that organizations actually put their ethics or their core values into practice. And they are also working to uplift communities, or they've got sustainability programs, and they're creating a better world. So a lot of people are saying that, you don't want to do that or whatever, but if you want to attract and retain the Gen Z workers, you're going to need to meet these needs. Any questions so far? And the focus of this session, and what I'd really like to do, and again, I know a lot of organizations are working on this, is I'm gonna ask Lynn to put us into breakout groups, but what I'd really like you to do is, number one, introduce yourself to each other. What I'm really interested in are, what are some of your best practices that your organization is doing now to start meeting the values and needs of the Gen Z workers. And again, I'm going to ask you to appoint a spokesperson and make a list of best practices, and we'll come back and share it with the collective. And again, what we want to do is learn from each other. How can we best meet the values and needs of Gen Z? And I'm going to also ask you to remember your breakout group number that Lynn puts us in, so that we can all, when we come back, we can all come back together and share that. Questions for me? Welcome back. Great discussion. Before we start having the breakout group share the best practice, I want to do a disclaimer. I'm in an area I don't usually operate in, and I thought the camera would zoom, and it's on AI, so we got the distance. I love having a more of a close-up so you can see nonverbals. So I'm going to ask the spokesperson from Group 4 or Team 4 to report out on some of the best practices you identify for meeting the needs and values of the Gen Z.
I think we were Group 4, right? I think.
Oh, right.
Somebody from my group tell me if we were wrong. If I'm wrong, we were 4, right?
Go ahead, Rebecca. We'll just keep going, make sure everybody has an opportunity.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we were Group 4. I wrote down 4. So
Okay.
I'm the spokesperson for our group. Something that we talked about with best practices is, like, when you have a team of different generations working together, that each team kind of be open to the different like mindsets, the different like values and practices, and then tailoring our leadership around that. So like, for example, like I used, I have baby boomers, and I've got Generation Z kind of under my umbrella of leadership. And so for me, with a Generation Z worker, where they have such a short attention span, kind of, it was based on an article I think someone had mentioned in our group, but like, using that attention span and giving them that autonomy to complete tasks makes more sense for Generation Z. Whereas with baby boomers, like I think Cliff had mentioned being able to sit and like go work through like a spreadsheet, like without having to worry about like breaking up the different tasks. So, being able to kind of give the work to people how they need it and letting them complete it within their own like time frames or due dates, or expectations, that type of thing. I think that was kind of what we kind of hit on as far as our best practices, just understanding that each generation, they're going to want something different or need something different in order to feel fulfilled in their own positions, and being able to meet those needs and tailor those needs per generation inside the workforce.
Rebecca, great insights. And one I want to highlight is leaders need to adjust their leadership to meet the needs of the people. Very powerful. A lot of people, and then the openness to it, and then meet them where they're at as far as how they do the task. Super. Let's go with Team 3 or Group 3.
I think that was us, right?
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that we came to great best practice outcomes. Maybe one observation. It seemed that folks, and I can relate to some other experiences, but it seems like the folks in the corporate world were having perhaps greater success navigating this than for-profit companies were having more success than some not-for-profits. At least that I'm aware of, and I think that might be because these differences, these value differences that you alluded to, are perhaps more accentuated in the not-for-profit community world versus the corporate world. But I don't know that I don't know that we identified specific best practices with how to navigate it. So we're gonna cheat off of what Rebecca offered.
Okay, no, I appreciate it, but you bring up an interesting point here is, the nonprofit seems to be aligned with these values. So how do you really put a focus on it versus, in the corporate, it's a different focus and it may be a greater urgency or need. So that's very interesting. Tina, go ahead. Or whoever's next, group 2 spokesperson. Group 2.
We didn't appoint a spokesperson, so I'll appoint myself.
Okay, Lauren.
We had a lot of different discussion, but I keep coming back to just the impact of remote and hybrid work and how that really impacts many different aspects from this list. We started talking about diversity and inclusion, and then we kind of morphed into the work-life balance. And we talked about, when you're in that sort of Gen Z up to age 27, you might not have a lot of responsibilities for other people like children or aging parents. And so some of your focus can be more on work, but your balance might be in a different direction. And then we also talked about autonomy and how when you're not sort of in the same workplace together, how do you kind of show that accountability and that you deserve that autonomy and you can manage that expectation. And then we also talked a little bit about, what was the other piece, if anybody can remember what that final piece was kind of about how to keep the team connected and how to fulfill that need for collaboration when in our current work environment, many people aren't together, and how to do that over other means like Zoom and virtual meetings.
No, I appreciate, Lori, and again, you bring up an interesting philosophical question, is as a leader, is the trust to provide people autonomy given, or does it have to be earned? And is that expectation clearly set with it? It would be interesting from the Gen Zs, do they expect it? Or does it have to be earned? And then how do you go about earning it? So that's an interesting point. And then the other one is the remote or hybrid workers. How do we make, number one, their contributions visible? How do we ensure accountability? More importantly, how do we stay connected? And the other thing is, how do we ensure we're adequately communicating our culture and keeping that up and keeping that ethos or that collective identity established to where they feel that they're part and everybody belongs, which is huge when you're working in that. And again, a lot of organizations, if you read the Wall Street Journal, are struggling. Some of them are saying, hey, we're coming back 5 days a week, you're working in the office. How's that going to impact attracting the younger people that expect to have at least 1 or 2 days where they can work hybrid? And the other thing that was interesting in the Wall Street Journal, the studies show that productivity doesn't drop if they're working, from a hybrid or remotely those couple days. Matter of fact, they tend to be more productive because they're not commuting and they're in different aspects. So those are some of the things to be thinking about as leaders as we're going through this. Do we need to have it, or is that a perk that we can give the younger workers, that flexibility? Again, they have deadlines, they have to deliver. Now, when and how you work, and again, some companies are saying that at a certain time frame, if they're working remotely and if they're in different time zones, at a certain time frame, everybody is up at this time. So we can reach across and we can get in communication, and then there's flexibility elsewhere. So yeah, great points from team 2. Team 1, wrap us up on this.
Okay, so we had some similar points that we discussed. We talked about flexibility, whether that's with hours being worked or working at home versus being in the office, and how technology kind of can play a role in that. And of course, Gen Z's, openness to technology and kind of tech savviness. So I'm part of Gen Z, so I added that, and then I also discussed how a lot of Gen Zs value development and learning opportunities. Well, then we had someone from our team chime in because she has just seen this through managing Gen Zs that they really appreciate a work life balance and how she herself tends to be more of these are her words, but a workaholic mindset. And how she's kind of seeing less and less of that with Gen Zs and just how they are wanting to have a work life balance, kind of like Lori was saying. And then she also said that Gen Zs they value open communication and they're very open about the fact that they want open communication. And again, with the flexibility, whether that's in person or whether that's virtual, they still want open communication consistently. So yeah.
Well, Maria, I appreciate you sharing those things, and especially the work-life balance. What calls to mind is Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of the habits is sharpening the saw. And would work-life balance give us a sharper saw so that we all can be productive? So you bring up a great point. And then the openness to feedback and regular feedback, especially performance feedback. How can we improve in different aspects? And then leveraging technology, especially AI in different aspects. So thank you. That is great. What I want to do now is go ahead. Anybody, any other questions? Anybody, comments?
Pat, one more thing I think we talked about in our group, and thank you, Maria, for reporting out, so well for us. But just kind of communication, how that is optimally done. Is it better eyeball to eyeball? Is it better electronically? But again, understanding how that can be optimized as well for individuals.
Well, and a great point is where can we meet the people and how they want to communicate? Versus some of us it's a phone call, other times it's on Slack, just drop us a message, a different aspect. So great point, Tina. I appreciate you bringing that up. What I'm going to do is kind of share some of the best practices in the literature, and you'll all get a copy of these, and then you'll have them here. My mouse is not cooperating with me today. You all just be patient with me. This is frustrating. As we go through it, we already talked flexibility. The Gen Zs want to have the autonomy to figure out the how, tell them what to do, and let them own the how. You're still checking in, but they own it. Are we encouraging them to take discipline initiative? And this gets back to that conversation earlier. Do we give them that initial trust to use initiative and innovation to figure out the how, or do we try to have them paint within the lines? And are we comfortable allowing them to be innovative and approach things from differently? And will we allow them to learn from their mistakes? We already talked open communication. The other thing about Gen Zs, they're used to providing feedback, input, being connected. So are we seeking their input? And the other thing for leaders, are we following up? If you gave me a suggestion or idea as a leader, am I closing the loop with you? I heard you, I considered it, we're implementing, you got the credit, or we're not implementing, and this is why, but please keep the ideas coming. And that creates that open lines of communication, and they know as a leader, you're willing to entertain new ideas, you're open to new ideas. Here's another big one, and especially in this generation, they want to work for an ethical organization. So link your decisions back to the organization's core values. Why are we doing this? How does this link to the organization's core values? How does it link to the mission or the purpose? And what that does is create an ethical environment in your organization. Research shows that most business leaders are viewed as ethically neutral because they don't ever talk about the organization's core values or their own core values and link decisions to it. So again, you want to, Gen Zs want to be part of an ethical organization. We already talked frequent feedback. Link their efforts to purpose. Another thing is organizations is, do you have resources to help with mental well-being? Is there access to where some people they can go talk to if they're feeling stressed or different aspects? This is something that they've come to expect, and do we provide that? Some organizations, if you read the Wall Street Journal, are hiring, counselors to have on call where they can schedule appointments to come in and talk to a counselor in different aspects. So again, mental well-being is important for it. And then we already talked about the importance of culture. Again, inclusive, socially responsible, and purpose-driven. And we, in development, our resources available for everyone to choose. If they want to develop, they have a chance to develop, and are we having conversations about their development, where they want to go in this organization, how we can get them there. We already talked work-life balance and diversity inclusion. So these are some of the 12 best practices in the literature, and again, we will share them with them with you on this. Any questions? No.
Yeah, I got a question.
Go ahead, Cliff.
I'm particularly interested in this core values of organizations. And my experience being an executive was that, I don't know how to best to say it, but there's a lot of lip service in some organizations' core values. And I think you mentioned that CEOs, maybe, et cetera, don't really consider those while they're doing their work. So I'm wondering how somebody discerns, what organizations' core values are truly meaningful and what organizations are not.
Cliff, you bring up a great point, and this is the common one, is most organizations have espoused values. The question is, are those values the values in practice? And what that means is, have we taken those values and taken whatever level you are in the organization, have you operationalized the behaviors? This is what we believe integrity is important. What are the behaviors we need to engage in to bring about integrity at the level we are in the organization? What does integrity look like at this level? The most important thing is, what is the underlying assumption or truth about behaving with integrity? Why would an organization hold integrity as a core value? That's where culture lies. And the key thing is, the leaders have to role model it at all levels. And then we talked about linking decisions. And when you start linking decisions back to the core values, and the core values are driving your decision, and leaders are talking about how core values are set and the boundaries are guiding behavior, and we want to win, but we're going to win within the limits of our core values. Now your cultures come to life. Those values that are listed on a piece of paper or on a little block on a people's desk are now starting to take a life, and they now are in practice. They're seeing that the core values are driving leader behavior and decisions, and they're helping us win. That's when you have a true culture that the spouse culture is aligned with the core values. The other thing that organizations, and one of my areas is trust. When I go into organizations, I find an issue with is their policies, procedures, practices, process, and systems and structure. They're not necessarily reinforcing behaviors that are aligned with core values, and that creates a trust friction point, and that also starts a cultural drift. So as leaders, we need to make sure that we're periodically reviewing our policies, procedures, practices, system, and structure, and that the behaviors we want from those are aligned in line with our core values. Go ahead, whoever had a question who wants to jump in. Or anybody else, best practices for taking the espoused values to actually make them values in practice.
This is Parul. I was just putting it on chat, exceeding for time, but all the values and needs that are listed here, are this across all generations and part of organizations now anyway? Or is it particular to Gen Z that this is extra pulled out? Because I think if I talk to my millennial colleagues or even my Gen X and any of those, I think I feel like since COVID, at least, there's been a huge mental shift and mind change about workplaces and what's needed. So I'm just curious to understand a bit more from the insides. Is this very specific to Gen Z, or is this more like just common now across organizations, no matter what the generation?
Well, excellent question. You anticipated the next one is, the question I'm gonna ask is, and you brought it up perfectly. What can the older generations learn from the younger, to the Gen Zs? And has this, shifted and are those 12, best practices applicable to all generations? That's a great question. I'm opening it up to the experts. What do you all think? Are the older generations learning, or are we starting to follow these best practices?
So I think in our breakout room, where one of the things we discussed was that I gleaned, I think, was the fact that the Gen Z tends to even have more of a work-life balance, right, or pursue it a bit more than our generation and beyond. And so that's definitely something we can learn from them, because we really need to have work-life balance. And those of us that are of the older generation, we just knew how to work and work into the nights and work into the weekends and things like that. But the Gen Z, when it's time, like whatever their work schedule is, when that time comes up, they're off, and you have to wait till the next business day to pick it up, and that's not to say like there are projects due and things like that, and you abandon ship or you don't care, but we need to strive to have more of a work-life balance. Personally, one of the things I'm learning to do is to really take a lunch break. Even if it's to do something non-work related like this, at least I took my lunch break. But I had a tendency to just work through my work day and then just not take care of myself. And they do a better job of that. The other thing I wanted to comment on, and I wish I could see the slides so I can speak to it, but I think it was with the innovation. Gen Zs can be very innovative and want to change a lot of practices, existing practices, right? But there's that need for guidance, if I can put it like that, because sometimes some of the practices or the procedures that are in place are tried and tested, right? And it works, but the innovations they might be bringing might make us get the work done faster, and it's need to be stuck in, we've always done it this way, let's not change it. When we are open to listen to what they have and guide them along, that, okay, we can't strip, like I can use an example, like we have this personal transaction form that HR uses to feed data to the payroll team and things like that. And we have some very young people in the HR team now, and they wanted to revamp the entire form, right? But there are certain aspects of the form that finance needed that HR would not be thinking about, like, cost numbers and cost center numbers and things like that. And so much as they will propose that let's strip this to the barest minimum, we need to give the feedback that, but we need A, B, C, D. So even if we are modifying the form, let's make sure that we don't lose the core information that needs to be communicated between the teams and things like that. So it's very important for us to encourage that innovation, but also guide it so that at the end of the day, we are updating our processes as we need to be more efficient, but also not missing the core things. Then down the line, we get a PT form and there's nothing on it that is of use, you see. So
you bring up some very powerful points. Number one is being open to challenge the way we do things. 7 most dangerous words you'll ever hear in an organization. We've always done it that way because things are always changing. And if we're purely on number one, we're open. Number 2, we consider, but more importantly, as you said, use it as a learning point. If we've reviewed it and this is it, now we're educating the younger workers that this is why we do it. This is why it's more efficient. And now they're starting to shape kind of an organizational mindset. And the other thing is, are we setting boundaries for ourselves and modeling work-life balance? Are we going home at night and having dinner and doing those things? And if we have to work, we work afterwards. I found that out as a leader. If I stayed late, people would stay late. And finally, I realized when it was the end of the workday, I'd go home. And if I had to do work, it would be at home. Or on the weekends, if you need to send, if you like to catch up on emails, delay sending it until Monday. So people don't know, or let people know that if, I'll always start my emails if I send them on the weekends, good morning, happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. That lets people know right away. I don't expect any action on this until Monday morning. And then that way you're setting the boundaries and you're mailing. So great points, sir. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else that, how can the older generations learn from the younger generations and be more effective as leaders and contributors to the organization? Cliff, go ahead, sir.
So on this email point, I finally got to the point where if I composed an email that was on my mind at the current time, I would set it up to send on Monday instead of immediately, because while I was part of the boomer generation, it always bothered me when I got an email at 4:30 Friday afternoon that said, oh, I really need this. Oh, I really need this. And I'd react, well, no, he really doesn't need this. He's just being controlling and so forth. So I think that's a really good practice if you want a practical, way to keep tension down. Is if you have a thought and you have something you need, evaluate whether you really need it right now. And, if you don't, set the email up for a later send. We have that technology, so, we ought to use it.
And great point, Cliff. And again, I would encourage the teams in order to set up norms, like you said there. And if you need to get somebody on the weekend, set it up. If I call you, it's probably I need to talk to you. Otherwise, it's delayed send to Monday morning or however you want to do it. But the weekends we're protecting unless it's absolutely critical for us to engage on that. Any other leaders' thoughts? How can we, the older generations, learn?
And Pat, I'll just add, I think, it's a mutual learning, not just one generation, but again, having that harmony and really being able to, derive the best from one another to have a very robust team. So hopefully, the generations in the workplace, which there are many, are learning simultaneously from each other and being open to that.
Totally agree.
100%. And if we can create that expectation and the openness that that we can learn from each other and get better, and that different is okay. And so great point. Go ahead, Erica.
Trainer in India. I just looked on your pictures that you sent me.
Okay.
You've got one.
No, I'll respond.
So that's another thing. They probably need one.
But it's either right.
But it's either.
All right, let's go ahead and continue, Jerry. What I want to do now is at the last part, I want to just share with you 5 tools that you can kind of think about to kind of help create an environment where you're meeting the needs and values of the Gen Zs. So I'm just going to share. If you have questions, please jump in and we'll kind of walk through these as we go through. And these are the 5 tools. You all know one of the most important one is the psychological safety. Do people feel that they belong? They can share their perspectives. Are we creating an opportunity for people to challenge the way things are done? Are we open to it? Can they share their true feelings? Can they ask questions? Can we admit mistakes? And why that is critically important, it enhances learning. It's a proxy for trust, but more importantly, it is absolutely critical for inclusion. That people feel that their voices, their ideas are welcome, that we'll consider it, and we're not going to be psychologically attacked or somehow excluded from the group because we're doing this either by the leader or the one of my peers. So again, as leaders, we want to make sure that people are feeling safe in the team. Some of the ways you can do this, and if you haven't read Amy Edmondson's book, Fearless Organization, it is a great read, and it's a great way to set up an environment where it's psychologically safe. I'm going to talk to you about the exemplary leadership styles. Again, you need their input. Be vulnerable. I always believe that, 6 or 7 minds are better than one. And the other thing, as a leader, people will find your blind spots where you're not seeing things, and that's why you need to encourage those people to give their feedback. And be open to the honest feedback, even if it stings, you need to hear it. Again, realistic expectations. The other thing I always, on site safety, as you're planning a project or initiative, we're gonna do the best we possibly can, but I've never seen perfection. So we gotta let people know that, hey, this is the best, no initiative suffice first contact with the market. We're gonna learn, we're gonna adjust, and we're gonna just keep learning. So we're not looking at perfection, best, learn, and continue to learn. So it's realistic expectations. Again, let people know that if we're being innovative, we're being creative, we're gonna make mistakes, use those as opportunities to learn and grow and continue to move the organization forward. Always, if you're gonna try a new initiative or project, have a devil's advocate who their whole job is to find gaps in the assumptions about the project or different aspects, so people know that's happening, and you create an environment where people are used to having things challenged. And then the other one is, make sure that you've got, time planned during an initiative and at the end to do, either a reflection or just kind of a pause to say, what are we learning? What's going well? What's not? Let's learn as we go. And then at the end, the formal project doesn't take place until we do the debrief and we're learning. And again, the leaders are the first ones to stand up. This is what I did well. This is what I didn't do well. This is what I'm going to change. So people know that it is safe. It's all about learning. It's all about growing. Questions on psychological safety? The next variable that's really important here is to create a growth mindset and to model a growth mindset where we're encouraging people from all generations to challenge what we're doing there. That we're always, our skills and talents are malleable, we can continue to grow, and we're celebrating the learning as we continue to develop. The opposite of a growth mindset is more of a performance mindset. And if we have kind of a fixed or performance mindset, we feel our skill sets are relatively stable and we want to kind of stay in our own kind of lane. And it's threatening to us because who we are as a person is being evaluated as we perform. So as leaders, we want to communicate that, hey, we are learning and growing. We're constantly taking on these challenges. We want to take on new challenges and challenge the way we're doing to create that environment that, yes, we can continue to grow. And if we're doing debriefs or after action reviews and we're constantly learning, people are going to realize that we can continue to grow and develop. And we've got that learning approach to the way we're doing things. And it kind of creates and invites all generations to give input, to give their creative ideas. Questions on the growth mindset? And some of the techniques, if you haven't read Carol Dweck's book, The Mindset, it is a great read for leaders. It'll change the way you give performance feedback, the way you view things, the way you set up initiatives and projects. But again, you encourage people to assume ownership for their own development, really reinforce that we're constantly growing and developing, talk about how you're constantly growing and developing. The other one is give people developmental assignments that are going to stretch and grow them, even though they may be uncomfortable. Let them know you believe in them, and this is why you're doing it, and this is how you should develop and grow. And this applies to all generations, especially the younger generations. And again, you want to put them out of their comfort zone. If you're outside your comfort zone, you're learning and growing. And remember, praise the process. It is all about the process. If we got a good process, the outcomes will come. And again, it's about learning and development. Again, heart of the promise of not yet. If we haven't fully connected on the project, we're continuously iterating, and we're going to continue to go. We already talked about after action reviews. The other one is courage and have a system where people can continuously engage in improvement. Encourage them to do it, either audible books or whatever it is. Everybody should have an opportunity to continue to grow if they so desire. And then the other one is, this is kind of realistic expectation. Expect setbacks. Nothing will ever go always as planned. Just let them know. We will continuously adjust, and we were going to run into it. And my team, we call it VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. we'll say we're getting VUCA. We already know, hey, now we need to pivot and adjust, and we continue to learn. And then again, model a growth mindset in yourself, support your team doing it. And then the other tool I'd encourage you to use, and this is very, very powerful theory of motivation, human motivation, is called self-determination theory. This is DC and Ryan's theory. If anybody's ever read the book, Daniel Pink's book, Drive, he takes this theory and talks about it. But there's 4 components to it. Number 1 is purpose. Always link why we're doing something, give people the why. How does this link to the overall bigger organization or team? How am I contributing to it? Again, it's an internal motivator. People want to know that they're contributing to something greater. We already talked about this. You give people the what needs to happen and what success looks like. Let them figure out the how. Mastery, similar to the growth mindset. Give people assignments and have them work on projects that are going to stretch their abilities on that, and so that people can see that they're in this job, I'm going to be able to realize my potential, and there is a career path. And I'm giving all my people an opportunity to engage in these experiences that are going to set them up to promotion for the next level. So I'm building that bench of leaders for the next level. And then meaningful connections, creating environments where it's psychologically safe. We're investing time to build relationships, and we're creating relationships. You tap into this, you're tapping into internal motivation. It's very, very powerful. And then exemplary leadership styles. You'll have already been probably exposed to these. I'm just going to tap into them. The ones that will really connect with the Gen Zs, but with all generations. Again, being idealized influence, being the role model, getting results, being highly competent at modeling that. Talk about a compelling vision. Where's the team going in the future? How does this link to the organization's vision and the organization's purpose? Always link people's behavior, their work, to the higher purpose. We tend to lose perspective in the day-to-day fight. People got to see that they're contributing to something higher. Again, individual considerations. What are people's needs and wants? What do they want to do? If I want to be promoted, are you giving me assignments or giving me books to read and whatever else to help me develop that? And am I meeting your individual needs? Again, if it's flexibility or whatever it is. And then create an environment where it's safe to challenge the way we do things. The other thing that's going to be important is, am I seeing the potential in everybody? And am I giving them opportunity to realize that potential? And then enable initiative, underwrite mistakes. It's going to happen, but you're letting them learn from the mistakes. And if you use transformational leadership, you're going to change the way or transform the way people see themselves, which will transform the organization. The other one is servant leadership. And again, this is if we're working on uplifting the people in the organization, then the results will happen. And again, the mindset is one of integrity and one of the service. We're investing time in the development of all of our people, and in the organization, we're making decisions for the long term, not just for the short term. And we're putting the interest of our people before our own. And again, we empower people. We set goals, and we see people as partners, and we are working together to help them be successful. And we're giving each other developmental feedback with the intent that we're going to grow, and we're going to hold people accountable for high standards, but we're going to do it in a developmental way. And we shape a culture about learning, value learning, and growing. So this is another exemplary leadership style that will resonate with the younger generations, but it will also resonate with all generations. And then the last tool I want to share with you, and we use this in the military, it's called Leader's Intent. And what you can do here, this is probably one of the most powerful tools you can do to really give people that autonomy to take initiative. And the first thing we do on Leader's Intent when you give it is, why are we doing this? Why are we conducting this operation? Why are we doing this initiative or whatever else? So people understand how their efforts contributed to the higher. We then outline key tasks, and these are usually 3 to 5 big muscle movements that you see needs to happen. And then the last thing we do is, what does success look like? We've all been in positions where we're given something and people will say, I don't know really what I want, but I'll know when I see it. And you'll waste hundreds of hours. So it's important for the leader to sit down and go to, what does the end state look like? And if I understand what success looks like, I understand the purpose, then I can use discipline initiative to take initiative to figure out what needs to happen, either accomplish the key task, how to accomplish the key task, or create new ones in order to make sure I meet the end state and the purpose. And I don't have to go back to the boss because the boss gave me their mental vision of what success looks like and why we're doing it in the major muscle movements. Questions for me on any of these techniques? Thoughts, reactions to any of them? All right, just to close, I know we're getting at the end of the session. We'll share the slides with you here. If you're gonna use leaders' intent, you've got to have psychological safety, and you're gonna have to shape a growth mindset mentality or adopt it as a leader. And this will be some of the tools that'll help you meet the needs and values of the Gen Z workers, but more importantly, probably all the generations on that. And if that'll conclude the session. If I'll stay on if you have individual questions or you want to talk more, I'll be happy to. But thank you for taking an hour out of your busy day to engage and share best practices. And Bronnie has recorded your best practices, and we will share them with you.